This is a survival story set in a Lovecraftian world. Imagine that everyone on Earth is mysteriously transported to a bizarre sea, where each person is given a ship. The ocean is filled with all sorts of eerie and monstrous creatures. To survive, you may acquire various weapons, or perhaps gain different abilities to help you stay alive. This is the third installment in the series. If you're interested, you can start from the first episode. Trust me, you'll experience a uniquely captivating story and unforgettable memories.
Don't move. If you so much as draw your bow or make any hostile motion, I'll blow your head off right here. Elias Graves threatened, slowly rising from the floor. The stranger froze, his eyes locked on the barrel, unwilling to make a move. But in truth, Elias Graves didn't dare fire too quickly. After all, the true danger of the flintlock lay in its silence. It was the calm before the storm. Once he pulled the trigger, two things could happen. Either it would misfire or it would fire. If it misfired, Elias Graves was as good as dead. If it fired, the stranger would most likely be torn apart by the sheer force of the shot. Drop your weapon, and don't make any unnecessary movements. Elias Graves' voice was hoarse and gravelly, carrying an undeniable weight. The man hesitated, rooted to the spot, uncertain whether to comply. Elias Graves stood up indifferently, an overwhelming stench of sea rot and decay wafting through the air, so thick it threatened to choke the senses. His left arm still bore the arrow, but he acted as if it were nothing, eyes fixed coldly as he dug into his coat with his left hand and pulled out a massive eyeball fruit. He took a bite, the fruit quivering in his grip as though pleading for mercy. But Elias Graves was too thirsty to resist. He devoured it greedily, the black, viscous juice dripping from his lips, staining his skin. The man before him could only stare, paralyzed by fear. "You've been disturbed. Your sanity decreases by 10. Elias Graves' gaze shifted downward. On the deck lay a few rotting long-legged sardines, a bloated cyst pufferfish with a putrid stench, and a pile of severed sardine heads. You see some unknown creatures with signs of gnawing. Sanity decreases by 7. Your sanity is now below 30. The activity log flickered with notifications, but the man remained oblivious, his fear swelling like a rising tide. This terror gnawed at his perception, twisting his thoughts. He began to doubt, to suspect, and in the face of danger, his instincts screamed to turn and flee. The man let out a blood-curdling scream that made Elias Graves jump, his finger twitching dangerously near the trigger. In a panic, the stranger tossed his weapon aside and fled, stumbling as he made his escape. Elias Graves was left in a state of confused bewilderment, unsure of what had driven the man into such a frenzy. But he wasn't about to waste the opportunity. He raised his gun, waiting until the man had put some distance between them before squeezing the trigger. Click! The gun misfired, the sound barely audible. The stranger didn't even flinch. Elias Graves quickly dropped the flintlock and snatched up his bow. Name: Pirate Longbow. Type: Treasure. Quality: Good. Description: Slightly increases accuracy with archery and reduces the strength required to pull the string. A pirate's trusty companion. Without hesitation, Elias Graves drove an arrow into the bloated cyst pufferfish, then pulled the bowstring back with whatever strength he had left. Whoosh! The arrow flew. Weakened as he was, Elias Graves couldn't pull the string fully. His aim was sloppy at best. But the gap between the two ships was only a few meters, and he still managed to hit his target. The arrow sank into the man's thigh, not a deep wound but enough to slow him down. But the truth was, Elias Graves had aimed for his chest. It didn't matter though. The man pulled the arrow out and didn't hesitate, bolting toward the bow of the ship as if running for his life. Elias Graves didn't give chase. Instead, he lay back down, feeling the weight of his exhaustion pull him deeper into the ship's stinking deck. His condition was abysmal. If the man turned back to retaliate, things could get very ugly. Thankfully, the stranger was too shaken to fight back, scrambling to start the ship and flee into the murky sea. It wasn't until the silence lingered in his ears that Elias Graves forced himself to rise. He looked like a corpse, a rotting zombie, but the truth was he was perilously close to becoming one. He couldn't feel pain, and his wounds didn't bleed. Only a light dizziness and sluggishness clouded his mind. He staggered to the ship's hold, drank some water, devoured all the eyeball fruits, and after a brief moment of recovery, he turned his gaze toward the sea. The enemy ship had already drifted far away, a dark silhouette on the horizon. Elias Graves steered Nightmare after it, maintaining a cautious distance. He was waiting for the poison to take effect. After all, that cyst pufferfish, the name alone screamed venomous. It was likely a pufferfish corrupted by the abyss, and pufferfish toxins were infamous for their lethal potency. After trailing for about a quarter of an hour, he closed the gap. Using the hook claws, he latched onto the other ship and, once close enough, set up a bridge with some wooden planks. Elias Graves' condition was so bad that even moving the planks required him to rest after every few steps. When he finally boarded the enemy ship, flintlock in hand and every sense on edge, he slowly made his way toward the bow of the deck. The enemy lay motionless on the ground, seemingly dead. But that could be a trick, a ruse to make Elias Graves drop his guard. He might have an antidote. Elias Graves wasn't foolish. He kept a safe distance of 4 or 5 meters, raising the flintlock and firing directly at the man's skull. Click! The damn gun misfired. It was maddening, but Elias Graves was patient. A minute passed. Boom! The man's head exploded in a burst of gore, transforming into a grotesque, oozing mess. It wasn't until that moment that Elias Graves finally felt safe enough to approach. Once bitten by a snake, one is forever wary of the grass rope. After being tricked by the drowned ones, Elias Graves had developed 100 more instincts. He inspected the man's body, finding a glowing orb beside the corpse. You have acquired Sea Conch coins *400. This was likely the man's currency. The pirate outfit the man wore also seemed to be of good quality. Blood-stained, elegant pirate garb. Type, relic. Quality, good. Description: this outfit belonged to a self-important fool. +1 agility, but wearing it causes a gradual loss of sanity. If mental state is above 8, the continuous loss of sanity can be resisted. Judging by the state of the man's sanity, he likely wasn't in any better shape than Elias Graves. He might have already gone mad. Elias Graves took the clothes, planning to loot the rest of the pirate ship. But then he suddenly noticed his mysterious skill unlock condition had shifted from 0/3 to January 3rd. Could it be that my unlock condition is killing someone? Elias Graves wasn't sure, since he couldn't pinpoint exactly when the progress had changed. The first time he killed, Elias Graves felt no burden on his conscience. Perhaps it was his high mental state and resistance that made it easier for him to shrug off. He donned the pirate garb, feeling a chill seep into his skin as he made his way toward the pirate ship's hold. This outfit is unnervingly cold. Your sanity decreases by 5. As for the debuff of continuous sanity loss, Elias Graves could simply ignore it, his mental fortitude far beyond the limits of normal men. Upon stepping into the ship's hold, the details of the ship became clear. This was no ordinary vessel. Pirate vessel, level 1, durability 1000/1000, capacity 800 units, speed 45 knots. Ship abilities, extra hooks. This vessel has 2 hooks on each side, capable of grasping objects or other ships. Pirate assault, increases speed by 25% for 15 minutes. Description: the skull flag is the soul of this ship. Strive to become the Pirate King. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Elias Graves attempted to change ships, but after combing through the logs for what felt like an eternity, he couldn't find the relevant option. It seemed the ship couldn't be switched after all. Not that Elias Graves intended to switch. This ship, though impressive, was no match for the Nightmare. The 4 extra hooks could be useful. With skill, they could drastically improve resource gathering efficiency. But these hooks couldn't compare to the Nightmare's ability to predict. That was a rare and powerful gift. He scoured every room in the ship's hold, and to his surprise, found a woman's corpse. She was naked, her body showing signs of considerable abuse before her death. One of her plump thighs was missing, and clear strangulation marks were visible around her neck. The blood was still fresh, suggesting her death had occurred only recently. Elias Graves was likely the second victim. The first had already perished. You ponder the whereabouts of the missing thigh. Sanity decreases by 2. Elias Graves furrowed his brow. The ship's owner's sanity was probably lower than he had expected. Their mental state was surely deteriorating. He began to sift through the supplies he had found, including 2 hard black loaves of bread, providing 2 days of nourishment, 5 L of fresh water, 125 units of wood, and 98 units of cloth. System notification. You have successfully claimed an abandoned vessel. You may choose to disassemble the ship, with the materials being transferred to your hold. Before disassembling, ensure your ship's capacity is sufficient. Any excess materials will sink into the sea. Disassembling this vessel will yield 100 units of wood, 50 units of cloth, and a blueprint for the pirate vessel. Only special ships can be disassembled for their respective blueprints. Each ship can only be upgraded once using a blueprint. Choose carefully. This notification only appears upon first capture. No wonder this ship had so much wood. The previous owner must have dismantled a regular vessel. Elias Graves glanced at the Nightmare. Its capacity was small, only 400 units. Capacity, 25/400. Wood, 14. Cloth, 10. Freshwater, 1 L. Anything less than 1 L is counted as 1 L. Only the materials occupy ship capacity. Other items, such as weapons and equipment, can be placed freely, even tossed on the deck. As for whether the ship will overload when too much is gathered, that remains to be seen. Elias Graves did the math. If he disassembled this ship, he would have just enough space to store all the materials, and the resources would be enough to upgrade his vessel to level 2. It was a fortunate windfall. After making sure there was nothing else of value, he returned to the Nightmare, now with a handful of crude arrows. Then, Elias Graves activated the system log and confirmed the disassembly of the pirate vessel. In an instant, the ship before him was dismantled under his watchful eyes, breaking into jagged fragments, which then flooded into the Nightmare's hold. Now, he had enough resources to upgrade to a level 2 ship. But before all that, there was one more crucial task to take care of: purchasing medical supplies through the trading system to save his life. If upgrading his ship meant he didn't have enough resources to buy medical supplies, then Elias Graves would be done for. He kept a constant watch over his status. His health had only decreased by a single point, and the rate of decline was slow. The wound didn't bleed at all, likely due to the necrotic poison. Instead, his sanity was steadily plummeting, now dipping below 80. This wasn't due to the pirate attire. It was the poison eating away at his mind. Without hesitation, Elias Graves opened the chat channel to browse and search for any options. First aid bandages for sale, 10 sea snail coins, 5 left. Name: first aid bandages. Type: consumable. Quality: common. Description: clean bandages, effective for stopping bleeding and preventing infection. Rum can also be used for disinfection. 30 sea snail coins per bottle. Only 1 bottle left. Balloon sales, you know what it's for. Elias Graves quickly scrolled through the listings. The trading system had only just opened, and people still had limited sea snail coins. Prices were all over the place, with most quotes being based on intuition. Bartering was far more common, with some even refusing sea snail coins, believing that this was safer. Few were selling resources, though. Currently, wood and cloth were the most traded items, more valuable than sea snail coins. Salt for sale, 100 sea snail coins per bag. Name: holy salt. Type: consumable. Quality: good. Description: can dispel minor curses, scatter it to ward off evil. Of course, you can also eat it. This was no good. He continued scrolling, hoping to find something worthwhile. Finally, he spotted it, a premium quality item. Limited sale of holy water. DM for details. Name: holy water. Type: consumable. Quality: premium. Description: blessed water, can be ingested or applied externally, and even used as a throwable item. When facing the aberrant creatures, you can never have enough. It can cure various toxins, curses, accelerate wound healing, and slightly restore stamina. This is it. Elias Graves quickly scanned his available trade assets, including the Curse of the Drowned, the pirate longbow, the rusted flintlock, the bloodstained pirate attire, the barnacle-covered fishing rod, the pirate ship blueprints, as well as various resources and 500 sea snail coins. If possible, he wanted to keep the weapons, the pirate outfit, the fishing rod, and enough resources to upgrade his ship to level 2. The pirate ship blueprints could be traded, but their value was undoubtedly high, making them unsuitable for sale at the moment. After a brief pause, Elias Graves decided to send a private message to the seller. Before adding friends, players are anonymous by default, and they can choose to reveal their real names or ship names. Elias Graves: what's your price? Several minutes later, the seller replied. It seemed there were a lot of people trying to contact him. Anonymous: I need a large amount of cloth, as well as life-saving items, equipment, water, and food. Any of those will do. Elias Graves furrowed his brow. In fact, he felt more passive now that the pricing was in his hands. If he offered too low, people would think he was wasting time. If he went too high, he'd risk losing everything. But with his life hanging by a thread, he had no time for negotiations. He immediately gave his highest acceptable price, eager to trade as quickly as possible. If it didn't work out, he'd move on. He sent the private message: Curse of the Drowned, check the stats yourself, it's a quality life-saving item. Plus 400 sea snail coins, 30 wood, 58 cloth, a loaf of black bread, and 4L of fresh water. He attached the stats of the Curse of the Drowned. After sending it, he didn't wait for a reply, continuing to browse other items. But the reply came quickly this time, only a few seconds later. Your offer is far more sincere than others. At the same time, a friend request appeared. Captain Lyra of the Radiant Goddess has sent you a friend request. Elias Graves decisively accepted. A few messages followed. Compared to you, the others are just wasting time. I have 4 bottles of holy water on hand, but given your condition, I doubt one will be enough. So, I'll give you 2 as a greeting gift. I'm Lyra. My ship can produce holy water, so we can have a long-term partnership. May the Radiant Goddess bless you. Elias Graves could hardly believe it when the trade request came through. It was too smooth, too easy. It seemed that the other player really needed the Curse of the Drowned as a life-saving item. And she seemed kind, at least from this trade. Radiant Goddess. Looks like the ship's name may reflect the player's personality. Elsewhere, on the Radiant Goddess, it was a pristine white 3-masted ship, crafted from solid white oak, appearing as holy as a vision of purity. Captain Lyra, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, tall and voluptuous, yet with a delicately Asian face, likely of mixed heritage. She stood in the ship's special chamber, called the Prayer Room, where a statue of the Radiant Goddess loomed. Currently, the ship was at level 1. The Prayer Room could produce holy water, but the output was very low. Moreover, Lyra had a much greater concern. Restless sea spirits always visited the Radiant Goddess ship, especially at night. So, every night she was forced to retreat to the Prayer Room. Items like the Curse of the Drowned, life-saving tools, were exactly what she needed. With these in hand, she could afford to hide in the Prayer Room long enough to survive. The transaction was completed swiftly. All that remained was to confirm the details in the log and lock it in. Next, the trade items were tossed into the monster gacha machine, which would then transport them to the other ship. No need to worry about breach of contract. The gacha machine guaranteed the trade. Machines like this, with their completely different aesthetic, often signified outlier bosses. It was best not to tempt their unpredictable nature. Elias Graves tossed the agreed items in. The system would directly deduct materials from his ship's hold. Soon enough, the gacha machine spat out 2 bottles of holy water. The liquid, stored in reagent vials, was clear, colorless, and pure. Elias Graves opened one, sniffed it. It had no scent, and drank it in one go. Immediately, his body felt as if it were on fire, burning and aching with unbearable intensity, and a faint charred odor emanated from his skin. But his mental state improved considerably. He felt alert and refreshed. Effective! Elias Graves rejoiced, checking his status. The corpse toxin infection had progressed to moderate, but his health began to slowly rise. So he drank the second bottle to solidify the effects. Then he spent 50 sea snail coins to buy 5 first aid bandages. These were likely made from cloth, but since Elias Graves didn't have the recipe, he had no choice but to buy them. He pulled the arrow from his left arm, the sharp pain making him bare his teeth. But pain was a good sign. It meant the corpse toxin was receding. After cleaning the wound with a small amount of fresh water, Elias Graves wrapped it himself, then checked his status once again. Elias Graves. Status: wounded/corpse toxin infection, mild, improving. A human figure, faint yellow with darker shades around the wound. Sanity: 93/100. Energy: 35/100. Health: 19/100. Slowly recovering. He let out a long sigh. He had made it through. The remaining supplies were enough to upgrade the nightmare. He decisively chose to upgrade. Sufficient materials. Are you sure you want to upgrade? Elias Graves clicked confirm. The nightmare glowed with a sickly green light, like wraiths swirling around the ship, and its hull began to stretch outward. Upgrade complete. The nightmare has been upgraded to a level 2 ship. Please check the ship interface for specific changes. Nautical announcement. The number of level 2 ships has exceeded 10,000. The Sea of Origins will soon face a new shift. In 3 days, an unprecedented storm will descend upon this region. All players are advised to prepare. As soon as the announcement hit, the chat channel erupted. 10,000 level 2 ships. Damn it, I'm still short 8 units of wood. Anyone selling? Bro, how is this still such a grind even in this cursed game world? High price for wood and cloth. DM me if you're selling. A surge of excitement flooded the channel as players scrambled to upgrade, pushing the prices of wood and cloth to new heights. But the worst off were the special ships that required additional materials for upgrades. Iron Will, fish meat in exchange for steel, DM for trade, providing fresh fish meat in bulk. Don't buy from him, his fish smells like gunpowder. It's disgusting. Just say whether it's fresh or not. I guarantee it's freshly killed and sold. Who has low-tier wind essence? Price is negotiable. The one speaking was Gale, and since Elias Graves had him added as a friend, the channel was no longer anonymous. Selling organic cucumbers, organic cabbage, organic apples, organic bananas, packed with vitamins and moisture. You know what I mean? Also buying seeds at high prices. Where did you get these fruits and veggies? Does your ship grow crops? You clever fox, you guessed right. He attached his ship's details. Farmer's vessel, level 1, durability 600 to 600, capacity 1,000 units, speed 25 knots. Ship skill, efficient farming. The ship contains arable land. The time required for harvest varies depending on the type of seed. Description: farmer? No, now you're called Dad. Elias Graves was taken aback. He didn't expect a ship that could farm. This was a fortune beyond measure. Each special ship had its unique advantages. Elias Graves glanced at the blueprint in his hands. This thing was definitely a treasure. Name: Pirate Ship Blueprint. Type: Blueprint. Quality: Special. Description: this blueprint allows you to transform your ship into a pirate ship. It will grant faster speed, more grappling hooks, and even cannons. Elias Graves hadn't seen any cannons on the pirate ship yet, so he suspected they would only be available after an upgrade. And as he had expected, using the blueprint didn't consume any materials. This meant that higher-level whiteboard ships, when using the blueprint, would gain massive benefits. For instance, a level 3 whiteboard ship using the blueprint would turn into a level 3 special ship, saving a great deal of materials that would otherwise be needed for upgrades. The higher the level, the more materials would be saved. So, as time went on, the price of these blueprints wouldn't crash. He then checked his ship status again. Nightmare ship, level 2, durability 600/600, capacity 1,000 units, speed 50 knots. Ship skills, nightmare. Sleep quality on this ship is atrocious, filled with nightmares. Energy recovery efficiency -75%. Fisherman's curse. Regular fish are no longer associated with this ship. The chance of encountering abnormal things increases. Description. This ship has grown larger, but it cannot hide the fact that it is still dilapidated. The ship's durability had doubled, but it was still low, fragile, and couldn't withstand too much wear. The ship's length had expanded to 20 meters, and a rusted iron chain was bound to a skeleton at the bow, likely the remains of the former captain. Inside the ship, a new room was available for expansion, with 3 different branching paths to choose from. 1. Extra cargo hold, doubles the ship's capacity, requiring 300 units of wood. 2. Ancient combat room, provides 2 waterlogged cannons for attacks, requiring 200 units of wood, 10 units of steel, and 10 units of sulfur. 3. Great statue, can intimidate passing ships, causing panic. Requires 300 units of wood, 300 units of fabric, and the corpse of an otherworldly creature. After some consideration, Elias Graves decided on the ancient combat room. Nothing provided more security than cannons. In maritime combat, you could never have enough cannons. Here were the materials he currently had at his disposal. Capacity, 102/1000. Wood, 39. Fabric, 58. Freshwater, 5L. Steel and sulfur appeared to be high-tier resources, but he hadn't come across them yet. The upgrade interface for level 3 ships was still locked, likely unlocked only after completing the expansion. Once Elias Graves had sorted everything out, he began fishing again. Food was still in short supply and needed to be prepared in bulk. Several dozen nautical miles behind the Nightmare ship, there lay a peculiar vessel, measuring around 10 meters in length, with a colossal crystal sphere of over 3 meters in diameter perched atop it. Astrologer ship, level 1, durability 500/500, capacity 800 units, speed 50 knots. Ship skills, astrology, displays the sea charts for a 100 nautical mile radius, showing ship names. Peeping, can display the image of a ship on the sea chart, cannot view islands. 1 target per day. Description, just opening maps. Not cheating. The captain was a striking woman with dark hair and bronze skin, her rare red eyes gleaming. She had been watching the Nightmare ship for some time. After all, it was rare for 2 ships to sail side by side. But then something changed. The icon for the pirate ship had suddenly vanished from the sea chart. Was it destroyed? The woman gazed into the crystal sphere before her. It was no larger than the palm of her hand, but within it displayed the surrounding sea charts, including ship names. She reached out and manipulated the sphere, activating her peeping skill to view the Nightmare ship's image. She saw Elias Graves on board, calmly fishing. A long-legged sardine was hauled up, and before it even touched the deck, it was devoured by Elias Graves. The woman's red eyes widened, filled with shock and disbelief. Before long, another eye fruit was reeled in, and once again, it was devoured. Finally, a cyst pufferfish was caught, but Elias Graves tossed it aside in disgust. Yet the woman's eyes glinted as she gazed at the toxic fish, her fascination undeniable. How is he catching these treasures? She marveled. She felt no drop in sanity, only curiosity, for she possessed a unique gift, which is blood. You yearn for knowledge. Your red eyes are your proof, as well as your inborn curse. Spirit +2. You have high resistance to strange creatures and phenomena. But beware, those who touch the forbidden will be cast out by the holy light, scorched by the divine flame. Bang, bang, bang. The gunfire echoed continuously, but each shot had a slightly different sound. Elias Graves was practicing his marksmanship. This flintlock was unreliable, so he needed to sharpen his aim to make up for its flaws. A wooden plank hung at the ship's stern, and Elias Graves stood at the bow, taking shots. Each shot was spaced by a minute. Misfires didn't matter, this was just practice. Beside him, a fishing rod lay ready, and now and then, he would glance out to sea, checking if anything was biting. An entire morning passed, and he had only hit a dozen shots. He was still a far cry from a sharpshooter. Elias Graves bit into a long-legged sardine. By now, he was accustomed to it, savoring the exquisite taste of the long-legged sardine. The legs, especially, were crunchy and tasted like chicken. Tomorrow would bring the storm the system had forewarned.